Hi, welcome to my new video. In this video, we are going to talk about how you can make sure that you're not going to overload your organization with new projects, new ideas, and so on. And also to make sure that you are building the right thing right. That's why this video is all about epics. In my last two videos, we were discussing first of all what a backlog is, which you can see in this video up here. And then we looked at the product backlog items, short PBI. And in this video, we introduced this mental model. And this mental model shows you the relationship between epics features and backlogs. In this video, we are going to talk about the epic. An epic, as you can see in this model over here, is a product backlog item. And an epic belongs to a product backlog. So, what exactly is such an epic? An epic is a large body of work. This large body of work needs to be broken down into smaller pieces of work which we need to implement. An epic will be developed by one to many teams which are working on this epic. And an epic always has a title, it has an owner and a description. The size of such an epic should be bigger than 3 months and smaller than 9 months, because we want to evaluate such an epic as fast as possible and bring value to the market, to the customer as fast as possible. To ensure that we are building the right thing right, there is this epic hypothesis statement, where you can see again the epic has the title or the name, it has the epic owner owns this epic, and then it has this epic description. Now, the epic description is very important because it is the pitch for this epic. And I like this form very much because it makes everything very clear. So, when we describe an epic, we say for which customer, who wants to do what. This solution, which we are building with this epic, is what it is, the how, that provides what kind of value. Then, unlike any competition, our solution does it better, and this is the why. You can see with such a description, it gets very clear what exactly this epic is for. For what customer are we doing what and why? Now, more important is, of course, we also need to define measurable business outcomes which we want to achieve with this epic. And for that, we need to have leading indicators. Not lagging indicators, we need to have leading indicators. These are the indicators which identify if this epic hypothesis is true or false as fast as possible, and not after we have implemented the whole thing. It must be leading indicators which identify right from the beginning when we are developing the MVP if this hypothesis is true or false. And then we also have a set of non-functional requirements. So what is the life cycle of such an epic? The business and also the clients, they have bright ideas. We need to take these bright ideas and use that epic hypothesis that I just showed you to create the description of such an epic, with the epic description and the business outcomes, and also the leading indicators. And this epic will then be put onto the product backlog. Then the epic will get prioritized on the product backlog, and when it is ready to get implemented, we will start building an MVP. An MVP is the minimal viable product, which is the minimum that we need to build to prove or disprove this hypothesis which we have defined. So therefore, the next step, we are going to evaluate the hypothesis based on the leading indicators and the business outcome we want to achieve. Then we analyze if the hypothesis is true or false, and if it's true, then we continue with the development of more and more features, and we are going to re-evaluate the hypothesis. If the hypothesis has been disproven, so the hypothesis is false, then we need to think about if we need to pivot. We, of course, can now say, okay, the idea is still good, but we need to make some adaptations. Then we create a new epic. And if we say no, the whole idea is not good, then we will stop with this idea. You can see with such a process in place, we are able to identify in a very early stage already if an idea is good and we need to invest more time and money into this idea, or if such an idea is not so good. This model is also a model that many startups are using out there. And if you want to know more about what exactly the MVP is, then you can watch my video, which is up here. So until now, we talked about the theory behind epics. Now, I brought you a very concrete example how we can do an epic hypothesis statement and how we can deal with an epic. Of course, the whole example that I brought you here is completely fictional. In this example, we are talking about the Swiss dentists, which is a fictional company in Switzerland, which has offices in all of the major cities. Dr. Hans Muster is the CEO of this company. Dr. Hans Muster has a new bright idea. He would like to have a mobile app for all of his customers. The customer of this mobile app should be able to change or schedule appointments over this mobile app. So therefore, the first thing which we are going to do is create this epic hypothesis statement. So the epic name is a mobile app for dentist appointments. The epic owner is Dr. Hans Muster. And the epic description is for Swiss dentist customers who want to schedule a dentist appointment. The Swiss Dentist app is a mobile application that provides the ability to schedule appointments, reschedule appointments, and search for locations. Unlike AAA Dentist, which is the competitor, our solution keeps our customers informed with automatic notifications. The business outcomes which we want to achieve with this mobile app is that the majority of the appointments are scheduled over this app. The call center volumes are decreasing and we have a better customer experience via this application. Therefore, our leading indicators are less call center activity regarding scheduling of appointments and an increase of the overall appointments because of these automatic notifications. Of course, we will have many non-functional requirements, but one non-functional requirement, which is sort of obvious in that case, is that we are striving for an availability target of 99%, which is 2 nines, which means that we have a downtime per year of 3.65 days or a downtime per day of 14 minutes. Now, let's have a look about this life cycle of this epic. So we have now this idea about this mobile application, and we are writing down this idea into this epic hypothesis statement that we just saw. Now, this epic hypothesis statement, or the epic, is now going into the product backlog. When we have enough capacity, then we are going to build a minimal viable product which enables us to prove the hypothesis to be true or false. In this case, we define the MVP as a paper prototype, where we are going to design the app on a paper. We are just making some drawings, and with these drawings, we are going to real customers of Swiss dentists. We are going to ask the customers of Swiss dentists if they are going to download such an app, if they are going to use this app to reschedule and also schedule their appointments via this application. The majority of the customers said, "Not again a mobile app. I have so many mobile apps on my phone. I don't want to use another mobile app. But if that would be a web application, I would be happy to use this as a web application and schedule my appointments or reschedule my appointments via this web application." So with this information, we are now able to say, okay, the hypothesis has been disproven. So a majority of the customers of Swiss dentists would not use a mobile app for rescheduling their appointments. They even say they don't want to have another mobile app. So the hypothesis has been disproven. Now we need to think about if we are going to pivot. Because a majority of the people has said they will be happy to use a web application, we can create a new epic out of that. And this is how such an epic can look like after we have adapted it. Instead of having a mobile application, we now have a web application. And again, we are going through the cycle, and first of all, we are creating a paper prototype with the web application. We again are going to evaluate the hypothesis together with the customers, and because of the positive feedback about the web application, we are going to build now a first MVP of this web application, and we are going to evaluate if people are using that. And this is how the evaluation of this epic looks like. We are now going to evaluate if we are reaching our business outcome and our leading indicators. We remember back that we have defined the business outcome as the majority of appointments schedules are done via the web application. The call center volume are decreasing. We have a better customer experience via the web application. We have leading indicators, which are less call center activity regarding scheduling of appointments. And we have an increased overall appointments because of automatic notification. We started the MVP rollout in June. You can see with the blue line in the graph that the average of call center volumes per day is decreasing. You can also see with the light blue line that the average call center appointments scheduled per day is also decreasing over the months. And with the green line, you can see the average of schedules via the web application is increasing and going up. And with the gray line, you can see that the overall appointments per day is also slowly increasing. So with all of that, we can see that we are able to evaluate such an epic very early already in the MVP stage, and we can identify if we are reaching the business outcome by looking at our leading indicators. And this is exactly the big magic of using epics instead of using projects. This brings us to the comparison project versus epics. A project has a fixed scope. It has a list of deliverables, of requirements that need to be fulfilled, versus an epic where the scope is variable, because we are not going to define what exactly needs to be delivered. We are going to define what the business outcome is and what the leading indicators are. This brings us to the measurement of a project. In a project, we are going to measure by the scope which is delivered, so the output that we are going to generate. Versus in the epic case, we are going to measure if the hypothesis has been proven or disproven, and this is done by the leading indicators. So there we are focusing on the outcome instead of the output. When we look at the project, then a project always has a fixed time frame. It has a clear start and a clear end date. Versus in the epic case, we don't have a clear start or end date. It's all about the hypothesis that needs to be proven or disproven, and about whatever we have reached the business outcome or not. And then about the implementation style, projects are usually using waterfall or water scrum fall, versus in the epic case, we are using agile methodologies. When we look at the teams, then usually projects are staffed with people. People are going into the project and the project is finished, they go away. So we have temporary teams, where in an epic case, we have stable cross-functional teams which are working on a backlog and are delivering epic after epic. In the project case, we have fixed budget, versus in the epic case, we have the funding over value stream, because the teams are cross-functional teams which are working in a value stream. When we use projects, then usually you create an over-detailed business case in the beginning over months, which are based on the return on investment, versus in the epic case, you define this epic hypothesis statement with the leading indicators, and you define an MVP which evaluates these leading indicators. And then to the operation, usually when the project is done, it is thrown over the wall of confusion to the operation team, which then needs to operate that, versus in the epic or in the agile case, it also includes the whole operation. You can see from that an epic and the epic hypothesis statement is far more efficient and effective versus a project to build the right thing right. So we are coming to the summary of epics and why we should use epics. Usually what happens is we have a lot of bright ideas and we want to develop all of these bright ideas, and we think all of them are converted into great applications. But unfortunately, what we are forgetting is that we are completely overwhelming and overloading the development teams. So what is actually happening is that we have some bright ideas, which are absolutely great, but there are also ideas which are not so good and should not be developed. And because we are developing all of these ideas, in the end, the development team gets completely overwhelmed. They are overloaded with stuff they need to do. And what you can see is a big amount of technical debt that gets piled up. The quality is decreasing, and the really good ideas are not going to make it into production or are not built in a way that the customer really likes it. So instead of doing that, we should use the epics. Because yes, there are some bright ideas out there, but also not so bright ideas. And therefore, we first need to create the epic hypothesis statement, think about what we really want, what are the business outcomes, and how can we measure them as fast as possible. Then we create a minimal viable product and start to evaluate this hypothesis. When we evaluate the hypothesis, we can decide whether the leading indicators have been met or not. And then we can decide whether we want to pivot or we want to stop also some of these ideas. If we are going to pivot, then we create a new epic based on the learnings that we have done. If the hypothesis is true, we continue developing and re-evaluating the business outcomes. And of course, if we have reached the business outcome, then we will stop with the development. This makes sure that we build the right thing right, and we are also ensuring that the development does not get overwhelmed and overloaded with a lot of things to develop, so that they can really concentrate on the right features and on the right epics and build the right thing in the right way. And with that, we are at the end of this video. Please leave me a thumbs up when you liked this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel because the next video will be about features.